Hello students, today we are going to talk about the sculpture, iconography, painting and their correlation to dance with the main focus on the basic principles governing these arts and their influence with one another. Our aim is to understand the basic principles behind the execution of these art forms, which would help us to study these art forms better and would even help us during the practical execution of the same. Fine arts commonly include the visual art and performing art forms such as painting, sculpture, collage, assemblage, installation, calligraphy, music, dance, theatre, architecture, film, photography, conceptual art and printmaking. However, in some institutes of learning, the term fine arts is associated exclusively with the visual art forms. But in this lecture today, our major focus would be on the sculptures, paintings and dance, where sculpture refers to the art of consciously creating forms and images in the three-dimensional. A sculpture could either be in the round or in relief. Traditionally, sculpture could be made by either of the two methods, that is, by carving or by molding. Carving is known as the subtraction method, with the block of marble, stone, different types of woods, plaster being cut into, using various tools such as chisel, hammer and gouge until the desired form is reached. In modeling, on the other hand, clay or wax is used as preliminary material in creating a form before casting it into metal or plaster. Painting, on the other hand, is a work usually consisting of two-dimensional images, produced either by a group of artists or a professional independent painter, using a variety of techniques and from various materials on various supports. Talking about iconography, it is the study of those images which are meant for some specific purpose based on specific dhyanas. Icon is a word from icon, which means image. Last but not the least, dance is an art form that generally refers to the movement of the body, usually rhythmic, and to music, used as a form of expression, social interaction, or presented in a spiritual or performance setting. Dance is also used to describe methods of non-verbal communication between humans, motion in inanimate objects, and certain musical genres. As each written language has certain fundamentals such as letters, words and punctuations, in the language of art, the fundamentals are called the elements and principles of art. Whenever artists create a work of art, they make use of the elements and also employ the principles of art. The visual elements, line, color, space, shape or mass, texture, light and shade, scale and proportion are the raw materials artists use to express their ideas, whereas the principles of art like unity, balance, dominance, harmony, contrast, movement and rhythm helps an artist to create a perfect composition. Line is a progressive movement and can be defined as a path left by a moving point, a point being the smallest of the visual elements. Lines do not have to be drawn. They can be painted, sculpted, cut out of paper or other material, photographed or articulated by architecture. The lines has direction as well as position. Whether straight or curved, the line tends to draw our eyes along with it. It suggests an action which can associate with it. Like when we stand up in a vertical position, it becomes a vertical line. When we run fast, our bodies are in a sloping position. It becomes a sloping line. A horizontal line, like when we sleep, and a curvy line when our body takes a curved position. Lines can also produce change in appearance of an object. Mostly, lines have been used in the prehistoric drawings, and that too with economy. Mostly, diagonal and angular lines have been used in the drawing of human figures. The paintings are lively and full of rhythm. The expression of ideas through very few lines is the speciality of historic painting. Another important example of line is the Ajanta murals. Expression of emotions through line is the speciality. Nowhere in the world such a beautiful expression of emotion through lines has been done. A little movement of brush has added additional charm to these paintings. The expression of ideas through fingers only could have possibly simply shown through the power and flexibility of lines. Light, roundness, convexity has been shown through lines. Another example is the sculpture Durga and Maheshasura from Mahabalipuram. The sculpture shows a battle between Durga and Mahishasur. The figure of Durga stands out as a central main figure. Due to the position and carriage of her body, her figure from head to foot is the vertical position, suggesting unassailable firmness, whereas the figure of the demon is standing in a diagonal position, conveying an impression of falling. Thus, the vertical line suggests firmness of victory and oblique line fall or defeat. Colors attracts, enchants and sometimes even repel. We perceive something to be red when red light rays bounce off it and strike our eyes. White color contains rays of all the colors, but a red shirt absorbs almost all these rays and reflects the red ones back to us. It has great influence over our lives in creating within us certain mental states and stimulating or depressing physical and mental activity. Color affects us both symbolically and emotionally. For example, red excites and stimulates, green relaxes, orange adds warmth, blue cools and refreshes, and so on. Colors has three basic optical properties: hue, value and intensity or saturation. Hue is the color itself, that is red, violet, green and so on. Value is the color's relative lightness or darkness as measured on a grayscale. Intensity or saturation refers to the purity of colors. Colors in pigments, however, differ from colors in light. Painters do not begin with white paint and eliminate the colors they do not want. Instead, they begin with the three basic colors, ones that cannot be made by mixing other colors like red, blue and yellow. These are called the primary colors. Optically equal mixtures of each of the primary colors yield the secondary colors. For example, red and yellow produce orange, blue and red violet, whereas yellow and blue green. Further, complementary colors are the colors that are opposite to each other on the color wheel. Complementary colors are used to create contrast. Analogous colors are the colors that are found side by side on the color wheel. These can be used to create color harmony. Monochromatic colors are tints and shades of one color, whereas warm colors are a group of colors that consist of reds, yellows and oranges. Cool colors are a group of colors that consist of purples, greens and blues. Colors have been very carefully used in the miniatures of the Kishangarh school. Mostly, primary colors have been applied in these miniatures without mixing, in which red, yellow and blue, white color as well as gold and silver color has also been used. Space, on the other hand, is difficult to define because it cannot be literally grasped. It is neither an object in itself nor is it a condition or quality of an object. The areas between objects are spaces. Space is the aggregate of such areas, or in simple term, Space is the distance between or around the shapes and masses and forms to be seen clearly, need space around them to create a sense of edge that defines their shape. Space is a working area within which we compose a picture. Further on, shallow, congested or infinite depicted spaces all produce different visual effects and different feelings. One kind of space about which we must know is that which lies between the work of art and the beholder. We respond intensively to a work of art only when we are able to see it as a creation separate from the affairs of the world. Such space is called the aesthetic distance. When we look at the Taj Mahal, we see an example of aesthetic distance. Its visual appeal would be lost if the space between or in front of the building is totally absent. Space plays an important role in dance. A dance affects the way the audience sees the space where the dance takes place. The dancers may travel through space or move in one spot. When they move through space, they go in different directions such as forward, backward, sideways and on various levels, high, medium and low. They make different shapes with their bodies and transfer their weight so that they are balanced or unbalanced. The path they follow on the floor is called the floor path. Coming to the next element, shape or mass. In painting and drawing, shape is defined as two-dimensional area circumscribed by a line. While shapes are two-dimensional areas circumscribed by lines, masses appear to have three dimensions: height, width and depth. The three-dimensional illusion of mass can be rendered on two-dimensional surface by shading, modeling, perspective and other such devices. Masses are of course literal in sculpture, architecture and other three-dimensional mediums. Talking about texture, it appeals to the sense of touch as much as to the sight. Texture is the tactile quality of an artwork, where the actual or depicted surface is rough, smooth, grainy, soft, regular, irregular or otherwise addressed to the sense of touch, where on one hand the shiny silk blouse and bordered silken orni in Raja Ravi Varman's Lady with the Veena is a beautiful example of depicted textures in an artwork. The shiny reflected surface of Lion Capital from Sarnath is a perfect example of actual texture on the other hand. Light and shade. Talking about light and shade, light in an artwork can be actual or depicted. Actual light may fall across a sculpture form to reveal its contours and textures, and as in the sculpture Ravana lifting Mount Kailasha from Kailashnath temple. In drawing, painting and printmaking, on the other hand, various lighting conditions are depicted as in the miniature painting Around the Campfire. In this painting, a group of people sit warming themselves near a fire which lights up their faces and a hut nearby, while the rest is in shadow under a starry sky. There is an attempt at producing double lighting effect from the two light sources. Next we would talk about is scale and proportions. Scale refers to the relationship between a given form, shape, line or other visual elements and the visual elements around it. This relationship may be primarily physical or metaphysical. Something may be large or small in size without being correspondingly large or small in scale, as the relief sculpture of the dancing Shiva in the Kailashnatha temple, where the large form of dancing Shiv dominates all the other minor forms. Picture composition was one of the main speciality of Ajanta artists. In every composition, the main idea catches the eyes at once. They have painted the main figure in a bigger size in comparison to the other figures, in order to give dominance to the former one. In the painting Mother and Son, the same style is visible, as Buddha has been painted about 3 times greater than mother and child. Proportion, on the other hand, refers to the relative dimensions, but without implying a size other than the object's actual dimensions. The definition of proportion is more literal. It refers to the actual size relationships of various elements within an artwork. Talking about the principles of art, we first need to talk about the term composition. Composition is the arrangement of visual elements within an artwork. All the visual elements come into play in a composition, but their usage is determined on the basis of the principles of art. First of all, we'll talk about unity. Unity. One generalization about composition we can make is that all artists strive to achieve unity in their artworks. Artworks that do not unify their various elements strike to us as unsatisfying, as though they have either been dismembered or failed to coalesce in the first place. Unity is the wholeness that is achieved through the effective use of the elements and the principles of art. Generally, a work of art is strengthened by the sense of unity in forms and compositions. Works where all the elements seem to visually fit together allows the whole to become greater than its part, as seen in the Ajanta murals. In the painting Dying Princess, the princess is tenderly supported by a female attendant, while others with eager gaze are looking into her face and holding the sick woman's arm as if in the act of feeling her pulse. Thus, all the elements and figures are so composed that they form one united whole. Balance is the most important principle in the arts as well as in life. In an artwork, balance is defined as the arrangement of art elements to produce a visual equilibrium. Balance in a design or picture is so natural that we are not even aware of it when it is present. But when it is missing, there is a sense of unpleasantness. Balance is rest or repose. This restful effect is obtained by grouping shapes and colors around a center in such a way that these are equal attractions on each side of the center, as seen in the miniature of Shrinathji, where the form of Shrinathji is being worshipped by the king on one side and is balanced on the other side by the image of Pujari. Balance is divided into 2 parts. One is formal and second is informal, where formal balance means the objects on each side from the center are identical and the objects are not alike but are equal in their power of attraction. Formal balance is quiet and dignified. Informal balance, on the other side, means when objects are equal or same and they differentiate with the shades and color tones. Another method of balancing large objects with smaller objects is to bring the large objects towards the foreground and to balance it by placing smaller ones in the background. It gives the effect of being seen in perspective. This method of balancing is used especially in pictorial compositions. In the Gandhara sculpture, the narration is concise and the human figures hold the center of interest. The compositions show little movement and the artist concentrating chiefly on the direction and balance, thus giving a stabilizing effect. Dominance means to emphasize. It is the emphasis of one thing over the other. It is the process of separating the essential from the less important. The principle of dominance is basic to all life's activities. Dominance in a piece of art means that an object or color stands out in relationship to the painting, picture, etc. Colors that contrast or large objects tend to dominate the picture and therefore is what your eyes is naturally drawn to. An example would be a yellow square surrounded by a larger purple square. Another interesting example is that of the relief sculpture Dream of Maya Devi, in which Queen Maya is shown lying on the bed and dreaming about a white, huge elephant hovering over her in a palace room. In this scene, the enormous elephant Bodhisattva dominates the scene. Coming to harmony, harmony in painting is the visually satisfying effect of combining similar, related elements. Example, adjacent colors on the color wheels, similar shapes, etc. Harmony gives an uncomplicated look to a piece of artwork or sculpture. On the other hand, contrast is created by using elements that conflict with one another. Often, contrast is created using complementary colors or extremely light and dark values. Contrast creates interest in a piece and often draws the eyes to the certain area. It is used to make a painting look interesting. Talking about movement and rhythm show actions, or alternatively the path the viewer's eyes follow throughout an artwork. Movement is caused by using elements under the rules of the principles in picture to give the feeling of motion and to guide the viewer's eyes throughout the artwork. In movement, an art should flow because the artist has the ability to control the viewer's eyes. The artist controls what the viewer sees and how they see it. Like a path leading across the page to the item the artist wants the viewer's attention focused on. Techniques such as scale and proportion can be used to create an effect of movement in a visual artwork. For instance, an element that is further into the background is smaller in scale and lighter in value. Whereas rhythm is the repetition of art elements, providing progressive and related movement. Similarity of elements or flowing circular elements will give a more connected, flowing rhythm to a picture, while jagged or unrelated elements will create a more unsettling dynamic picture. There are three outstanding ways of obtaining rhythmic movement. 1. Through the repetition of shapes. 2. Through a progression in size. And 3rd, through an easily connected or a continuous line movement. The ornamental flowers and female figures carved out of the white marble in the ceiling of the Tejpala temple at Dilwara are of the most delicate kind. Its design is an example of rhythm in art. In looking at it, we feel that our eyes are attracted to the central flower. Then they make a journey round and round until they reach the standing figures. Our eyes keep on moving from the central flower to the figures. Thus, a sense of movement is created in the eyes and make them turn from one object to the other. The sculpture, A Horse Crushing a Warrior from Karnak, shows a horse crushing a warrior. The attendant of the horse is standing nearby holding it with a rope. The figure of the horse shows a powerful expression of energy and strength. Its arched neck and lifted foot contribute to the feeling of forceful movement. Talking about dance, the figure of Shiva Nataraj illustrates the timeless process that evolves the cosmic and human existence and involves it in the unending cycle of birth, growth and decay, illustrating the eternal struggle between spirit and matter and the forces of light and darkness. Dance in every form is a progression of rhythmic movement, delineating itself in space and evolving in time. Dance is measured sequence born of both categories, space and time, which essentially constitutes this world of manifestation. Therefore, dance is the prototype of universal creative activity. The whole of the universe is a display of life movement, emerging and dissolving according to the alternating time phases of birth and death, of evolution and involution. Shiva is engaged in the dance of universe. His right foot tramples upon the demon of ignorance and left swings in the air as a mark of deliverance. He sounds the drum of creation with one hand and holds the fire of destruction in the other. The right hand is stretched out in a gesture of protection and left signifies salvation. So, to conclude, we can say that art is an important facet of the society. It allows us a constructive outlet for our emotions and energy. The ability to create artwork is empowering and allows the artist to embrace and explore their talents. But before running for pastel and paints, it is important to understand the different elements that go into a piece of art. Learning about the fundamental elements and principles of arts in composition is important to one's art education, and how different elements of art can be combined to create an artwork that is unique and special. The principles of visual art are the set of rules or guidelines that are to be considered when creating an artwork. They are combined with the elements of art in a production of art. While observing a piece of artwork, example a sculpture or a painting, we analyze its quality in terms of color combination, shape, and the visual appeal as a whole. Thus, a good piece of artwork depends on how well it is harmonized with itself as well as with the surroundings. The blend of colors and imagination is vital for making it a masterpiece. The rules and guidelines that are set forth to bring out an impact of the artwork are known as the principles of art. The components of the principles enhance the visual appeal of the image or design. The elements of art differ from the principles. The aspects that are taken into consideration for analyzing the artwork are actually the elements, while the concoction of the technical aspects illustrates the principles of art. Thus, these elements and principles have a great effect on the meaning of art throughout the history. So, with this, we come to the end of the lecture, and I hope by now you might have had a clear picture about the principles related to these arts. Thank you.